Let's now get the thoughts of IBON Foundation Executive Director Sonny Africa. Sonny, thank you so much for joining us. We just heard the senator saying that this Maharlika Investment Fund will prohibit state-run pension funds such as the GSIS and the SSS to invest in the Maharlika Investment Fund. But you just heard the president saying that if the GSIS and the SSS want to invest in the Maharlika Investment Fund, let them do so. I'm getting confused here. Please shed light on it.
That won't come from me because I'm also confused. I did spend last night looking at the fund. There are so many contradictory provisions there. Internally contradictory, but also with the public statements. But I want to start off with, that tweaking of funding sources doesn't address the original sin. The fund is tapping government resources that already have current uses on this really specious illusory argument that they will somehow get bigger returns with the creation of this mechanism, the Maharlika Investment Fund. And I think all the talk about the safeguards, even this half step supposedly to rule out the use of pension funds, again, we have to go back to the ultimate problem, the fundamental basic problem. Original sin is that there are no surpluses to speak of. We have a growing budget deficit, growing national government debt, just heard it just today. International reserves are falling, since last year. So it's, that's something that won't be fixed no matter what safeguards you say, no matter the sunshine of the press releases, no matter the gloating of the proponents that they were able to rush this in the middle of the night.
Sonny, there are just so many things, so many negative factors going against this Maharlika Investment Fund. And you mentioned quite a number of them. So why rush the passage of this bill? Is there any urgency? Do we really need it? Does the economy need it? Do the Filipino people really need it?
I think categorically, we do not need this fund. Categorically, the funds that are being diverted to this should be used where they are right now. So I think, there's so much suspicion why there's so much political capital was used spent to pass the proposal. We're still reeling from the 17 days, I think, it took to pass in the House of Representatives. I think we're going to still be reeling from it being declared as urgent right now. But I think that is the biggest red flag for us right now. There is no objective basis for the fund. The arguments for its supposed contribution to economic development, even to returns, financial returns, are completely illusory. So I think the fact that they're pushing it despite such clear weaknesses should be a big red flag, because this is how the fund will be run if it pushes through once the president signs it. And the safeguards on paper, they're going to be notional safeguards. They won't mean anything in practice, having shown that, the government having shown that this is the political force behind this. The Marcos family, the president, is really fully behind this.
But on the flip side, let's look positively as well on this Maharlika Investment Fund, Sonny, because the proponents and the supporters say that this fund would give the government an opportunity to invest in key sectors. That's 500 billion pesos in industries such as infrastructure, among others, to promote economic development. But the big question is, how soon can we get a return on this investment on an infrastructure project?
Yeah, actually, there's actually a prior problem to that. We're being dazzled by the hundreds of billions of pesos the fund is supposed to mobilize. It's not as if this is like money lying under the bed somewhere, in a hole in the ground. This is money in the land bank, in the DBP, money that should be going to the national government treasury for allotment during the budget process. It's not like this is 500 billion pesos coming out of the blue. So this illusion is being created. One, that there's 500 billion pesos coming out of the blue. And secondly, that the mechanism being created will magically create returns for this fund. And to the second point, that's exactly it. Even the fund is confused. If you look at Section 13 of the fund, it has this weird dual purpose, promoting socioeconomic development, but also getting the best financial returns on investments. These are very contradictory objectives. Promoting socioeconomic development sometimes means foregoing immediate returns for long-term development benefits. Trying to get financial returns right now actually sometimes prevents long-term development benefits. And the fact that these contradictory objectives are enshrined in the law right now, that for us quite dangerous in terms of transparency, because with those contradictory objectives, however badly the fund does, they can just say, no, 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 we're not going for the big returns now. We're going for promoting infrastructure development, which has a gestation period of 10 years, 15 years. So I think the very, very mandate of the fund is so intentionally ambiguous to justify whatever will happen. They will not be held accountable for how badly the fund is being run. They won't be held accountable for who is benefiting from it at the expense of the people denied the funding because that was diverted.
And of course, Sonny, the big question is also, is it the right time to create a sovereign wealth fund when the global economy is still experiencing a lot of volatility coming out of the pandemic? We are still in the midst of the Ukraine-Russia war, high inflation, higher expenses. And if you take a look at many of the top sovereign funds worldwide, they have been experiencing major losses. And they have surplus funds.
And actually, that's actually a good and excellent point, because we have so many very well professionally managed funds with the biggest, most highly paid fund managers in the world, but they are actually not doing very well, whether in the Philippines or abroad. And again, we have to go back to the original sin. That is one that diverts the question of, is there money for the fund to begin with? And for us, we argue there's so much needs right now for immediate cash assistance, for developing local agriculture immediately, supporting farmers, supporting MSMEs. The fact that there have been budget cuts in key agriculture programs, despite the big increase in general, key cuts in emergency assistance, key cuts in support to MSMEs, and then there's suddenly money for the fund.
Yeah.
They'll be diverting money to the fund at the expense of these programs. At the worst, they'll be diverting money to the fund and then borrowing to make up for the diversion to the fund, even increasing our debt with no returns ultimately from the fund, meaning we bloated our debt unrealistically, unsustainably, and actually recklessly.
And we've already bloated our debt. It's now at a new record high of 13.91 trillion pesos as of the month of April. And not only that, if there's a need for more cash, then the Banco Central will have to print more money, which will lead to higher inflation and will put us deeper into debt.
That's why it is so bizarre that they rushed it so quickly. I mean, you certify bills as urgent if you want to seize the moment. Exactly like I said, is there a moment for the returns they claim to be wanting? This is not the moment for that. Is it the moment to be spending that money? Yes, that is the moment. So the fact that it was declared urgent by the president, who I really cannot forget, from the very start, he said that this fund is advantageous. He wouldn't have brought it up otherwise. The fact that he believes in it so much, you have to wonder, advantageous for whom? It's not advantageous for the country. It's not advantageous for ordinary Filipinos. So you really have to be skeptical. Who is it advantageous for? And I think it's something we really have to keep track of. Maybe not immediately. They will probably be operating in a very low-key way the first couple of years so as not to trap opposition. But our biggest worry is once people have sort of lost interest in this, once media has moved on to more sensational things like the midterm elections, the national elections, then the monkey business might happen. And then we realize we're suffering the sin of it having been rushed so quickly right now.
So the Filipino people, from day one that it is signed into law, must remain vigilant in watching the every move of the officials who are running this Maharlika Investment Fund. Thank you so much for your insights. IBON Foundation's Sonny, Africa.